Imagine que você é um engenheiro trabalhando em Shangai, na China, e resolve voltar para casa de bike. Só que a casa fica na Suíça. Já é uma baita de uma viagem, mas imagina que no meio do caminho, pedalando, você resolve, por que não ir até a África do Sul? E aí você chega na África do Sul e dois amigos convidam você para comprar um veleiro e atravessar o Atlântico indo em direção ao Brasil. Só que no meio dessa viagem, em Santa Helena, eles passam muito mal e deixam você com pouca experiência para levar o barco até o Brasil. Essa é a história do Gilles, que está no Spectrum, um veleiro aqui no lado do balanço, aqui no MCP, e que é incrível, tenho certeza que vocês vão amar essa história. Essa entrevista é em inglês, mas tem legendas aqui dentro do YouTube. E se elas não estiverem aparecendo para você, você tem que habilitar elas no YouTube.
So my journey began by signing for a job in Shanghai. So I went for my work actually to China. And I always had the idea after my work I will cycle home. That was my plan. So I had previous cycling experience with tent and everything. So I stayed 1 year in Shanghai and I started cycling home. And then this is a very interesting adventure to do on a bicycle. You don't need a lot of budget, you can very easily leave. It's not complicated like having a boat. And then it was really nice and I decided to continue my trip. So I took the wrong turn, I was not going home anymore. And I went down to the Arabian countries, Saudi Arabia, and then later all Africa until Cape Town. I had a friend who was following me and we did some sailing at home before, but we didn't have much experience, just like lake sailing about 100 hours. I convinced him to quit his job, sell everything he had, and we bought this boat together.
Eu tenho certeza que tem muita gente agora perguntando por quê?
So actually it's an old dream I had with my previous partner. We did cycling in Europe, like all Norway, Iceland. Pretty hard cycling too. And then we had the project of cycling through Asia together. And then things didn't happen. And I kept it as a dream in a little, I just put it in there and it was ready when the time would come.
Essa rota entre a China e a Europa, que é conhecida como a Rota da Seda, desde a antiguidade era o principal meio de comunicação entre o Extremo Oriente e o Mediterrâneo. E foi aí, fazendo esse caminho, que ele resolveu mudar.
You better do little steps.
Okay.
Already cycling home from China, but it's maybe a 1 year project. And you know where you go. It's actually a pretty common route by a long distance cyclist. And after going down to Africa, it was an idea I had, but I wasn't talking about it because there's so many open questions, way less cyclists going in Africa. But there are. And I met really inspiring people, like a lady, she's from the UK, 62, and she cycled around Africa alone with the tent. So you meet kind of really adventurous people down there.
But there are a lot of differences from cruising in a boat and the journey in a bike, of course, but I think there are similarities, like you probably wanted an experience outside society, outside civilization or something like that.
I like being in nature. I like the challenge of having only your stuff around you and you need to fix, and if you don't have the things around you, you don't survive. I like this feeling. So it's challenge, it's demanding, but it's also very rewarding. And on a bicycle, most of the time you're not far from people. Always people are around. Very rarely I was in a place where there was nobody around. It happened in Africa a few times, but most of the time the stress is not that high. On a boat, everything is heavy, is expensive. If you're sick or pandemic and you need to leave the boat, you might lose the boat. So it's way harder. It's the commitment for being on a boat is way bigger than on doing the thing by bicycle. The mental challenge on the boat, especially alone, because from South Africa I did half my trip to here alone. And then when you cross half of the Atlantic alone, you get to a point you're so tired. It gets dangerous. But it gets also an incredible experience because I start to see things I'm not sure they were true or right or wrong, like birds landing in my hands. And you get to a point of tiredness which is incredible. So, but you know it's dangerous. You must be aware of it. And you still do shit on the boat when you're alone and tired. Like climbing up my solar panel to chase the birds away. I shouldn't do that, but...
Then probably you don't know if they were there or not.
No, but they were there. I have some pictures. But once I caught one and he was puking in my hand because I was holding the bird. It was already too much pressure and he had a fish in his mouth and he puked in my hand. This I'm not 100% sure.
A lot of people in Brazil and more in Europe are full of gadgets, full of money, and if you compare any country, if you compare like 100 years ago, we are rich. Rich people from 100 years ago, or any particular country, maybe had a worse life that middle people have today. But we are very poor of real experiences.
Yeah.
Most of people.
Yeah.
Do you feel so?
You know what a cyclist told me one day before I started doing this project is, if you do a 1 year cycling adventure, you'll probably experience more than some people in their entire life. And this is 100% true.
Je suis en train de traverser le parc de Luamba. Et puis les locaux dans la ville d'avant m'ont dit qu'il fallait pas prendre un grand groupe parce qu'il y avait des rivières avec de l'eau, des crocodiles, et que c'était trop dangereux. Donc ils m'ont indiqué un petit sentier à travers le parc qui est plus éloigné de la rivière. C'est vraiment... il n'y a rien. Traverser des grosses herbes. Il n'y a rien sur ma carte, donc je suis la piste et je vérifie un peu sur la boussole. Voilà, donc si je me fais bouffer, ben... c'est la dernière fois que vous me voyez. Ça, c'est Indiana Jones! Indiana Gilles! Hostile bestiole! Alors me voici au sommet d'une tour de télécommunication. Je suis à l'entrée du parc national. On va. Je vais camper ici. Et les gardiens sont cool, ils m'ont donné la clé donc j'ai pu monter. Je vais faire quoi 50 mètres en dessous du sol. Avec une belle vue sur le parc. Ça c'est cool. Donc là je vois enfin des éléphants. Ceux que je vais peut-être rencontrer demain parce que demain je vais traverser ce parc. En prenant la petite route qu'on voit ici en bas. Ouais, c'est très cool. La Zambie c'est très plat mais énormément d'animaux sauvages. Donc c'est assez cool comme étape. Mais dur parce que la route est sablonneuse, un peu dégueulasse.
The thing with the boat is also a huge adventure. You need even more having skills of doing everything on the boat. You need, if you have an injury, if you have water ingress, anything you need to fix by yourself or you die. So it's demanding, it's also rewarding, but what is a bit hard if you like people? On a boat you're always in your bubble.
Eu acho que ele tem razão, porque é um mundo à parte do que a maioria das pessoas vivem em terra. Então sim, nesse sentido, é uma bolha. Ao mesmo tempo, talvez seja isso que faz eu amar tanto esse mundo. Mas é preciso ter noção de que a maioria das pessoas não vive assim.
There's almost like a natural law. It isn't, but almost. Like if you have more freedom, you have less protection. If you have more protection, you have less freedom. How do you feel that relation, living on a bike, on a boat, and living in an apartment in the city?
It has been 2.5 years now, almost 3. I've been doing this project. I'm very lucky I can do it. You know, having the right passport, some money, and I don't have to take care of my parents. If you have pressure from the family, because parents rely on you, maybe rely on your income, then it's very hard. So I'm lucky, and all those things are helping me to continue. And I really like this, and I'm not too worried about finding a new job later. Okay, I was lucky to have a good education, and I believe I will find a work later again. But I'll have to be very flexible. I cannot say I go home and want to work in the city I was living before.
But after all this experience, do you think you will fit again in your city?
Good question. After 1 year would be no problem going back. If I can finish, because my dream would be to close the loop and go back to Shanghai with the boat. But with the pandemic and also the huge ocean that is coming in the Pacific, it might take 2 years to get there. So then it will be hard. I'm thinking I should find again a work abroad. Like if you work in China every day is such an excitement to go back to work. You still feel being like in backpacking trip in a special place because everything is special. Finding a work again in China would be a good option, or anywhere outside your home would be maybe a good transit to really come back in the real life.
You seems to have liked a lot to work in China. Is it?
Yeah, I liked it. Yeah.
And to leave too. And
So Shanghai is too big for me. There's like another city not far away called Suzhou. It's only 8 million people. I rather would look for a place like that.
small for Chinese standards.
Yeah, like middle. 8 million is middle.
Uh-huh.
Shanghai is 25 million.
I saw you with your bike through the country, maybe without major problems. How is to travel in China?
It depends a lot on the province.
Okay.
Most of the time I had no problem. I was speaking some Chinese, so it helps for sure. I had problems with hotels. When I wanted to get a hotel, the cheap one, they didn't want me. So a lot of little problems, like because the Chinese have an ID, it's electronic. They put it on a machine, you're registered. And there is this obsession about controlling in China.
Yeah.
But the people like it. They support. They think it's good for the safety. So most of the people support this idea of having cameras everywhere. And so they also want that everybody is registered every night. And then you arrive with your passport and they cannot use this system. So they need a special equipment, they need a special training, and they need to pay for that. So many hotels, they don't take it. So what happened? In province where there is not too much police, no problems, they were using IDs from the cleaning lady and they're registering me like this. Because I understood the problem and I could speak a little bit of Chinese, insisting, okay. And then you arrive in place where there's tensions, or big cities where there's fancy hotels putting pressure. And then you end up looking for 2-3 hours to find a hotel and you have to raise the price. Once I ended up camping in a huge city, like 4 million people, behind a fence, well hidden, but in the middle of the city.
Does the police allow you?
So you're supposed to be registered. So you're supposed actually, officially you should have to go to the police station saying going to camp, explain this in Chinese, full documents. So you don't do this because you'll end up 4 hours per day just checking in. So you just camp, but on the countryside nobody cares. And especially in the remote areas, I was even camping visible from the road. Nobody ever stopped and told me anything. But then you arrive in a place like Xinjiang province, western province, where there's tensions. It's getting as much complicated as Tibet. I would not be surprised that Xinjiang is going to be closed very soon for foreigners. Actually, they don't want foreigners to go there.
There's a problem with Uyghur people.
People don't feeling belonging to China, fighting for having more freedom. And for the Chinese government, if they give more freedom in one place, it gives idea to others. So the long-term solution to that is to dilute the culture. So they push people to go and do business there. So you have Han people opening business there, and then it influence, and on long term it will solve the problem, but now there's people who fight against this. So they think it's good that there is so much police now there, because now they can go and travel and feel safe. There's not only one side of the coin. I don't really take position, because
they have different values. Of course, they are different civilization. We had experience with a lot of different cultures, from China to South Africa. And even China has a lot of different cultures, but the entire road must be amazing. How does that change you?
Oh, I don't know. One of my best time was in Central Asia. Central Asia is, all the countries actually are Muslim, and the Muslim culture has very good values for receiving people. So you end up like in Iran, people running after you and wanting to give you food, and it's really incredible. You sometimes feel bad because you think we don't receive the foreigners at home the same way. So I met incredible people. They took me home. I could stay in the father was a teacher. He invited me, he presented his family inside the house. Nobody's wearing the headscarf, and say, I want my daughters to be open-minded. And then you realize, okay, this is also Iran, and the hospitality is huge. He was treating me like a son.
That's why it's hard to judge other people's culture, because they must have some things that we judge as bad, but they have other wonderful things that we don't have. When you come back at home, you act different after.
Probably. I don't know now because it's like a smooth transition I'm living now. I probably will not recognize some of my friends and they will think I'm different.
Yeah, and you are not facing that reality.
No.
Then you'll see how you change. Yeah.
But things are changing at home. I hear about people having babies and all the things are changing and getting married. I'm missing a lot of good things at home. I never wanted to go home, so my parents joined me during the trip. I saw them, and now almost 2 years I haven't seen them.
How old are you?
I'm 32.
Maybe it's the right moment to do that trip, because if you get a little older, a lot of people do, but with families and so on, but it's harder.
Of course it's harder.
Yeah.
And even with a partner, I think if it happens to go with a partner, it wouldn't end up being such a long, and I was taking decisions like, because I'm alone, I can just take the decision. Yeah. Okay, I go down to Saudi Arabia because they opened the country for the first time ever. And if you're with a partner, maybe
you have to
different projects, different ideas.
You had some experience on sailing, so before?
Not much.
Not much, like you sailed like 3 times before? Like...
No, I started sailing with my uncle. He had a little boat, 26 foot, and we're doing evening regatta in Switzerland.
In lakes?
On lakes.
Okay.
And then a little bit of hobby cat with my friend, the co-owner, but like in total maybe 100 hours, so nothing, on lakes.
Okay.
Ele fez um treino de 3 meses e um curso de Yachtmaster na África do Sul. E a África do Sul é conhecida por ter fortes ventos e correntes e ser bastante desafiadora para velejadores.
Voilà, je suis en train de préparer ma traversée de l'Atlantique avec une école qui s'appelle Atlantico. Motor.
During my training, there was a girl, and she was a friend of this owner of this boat. So I got in touch straight to him. The boat was really well maintained, but not ready for blue water. I bought this boat with the friend together. So we were 2 owners, but he was not there. I was alone preparing, choosing the boat. He was trusting me completely. Yeah, so we are 2 owners on that boat. But he stopped later. He stopped in a place where you cannot stop, like Santa Helena Island.
Santa Helena é uma ilha britânica isolada no meio do Atlântico, a 1.950 quilômetros da costa da África do Sul e a 4.000 do Brasil. Foi lá que Napoleão ficou preso nos últimos anos da sua vida, até morrer na ilha, ser enterrado lá.
But I had to bring this boat out alone and take care during the pandemic, so it's, yeah.
How do you felt when you knew that you had to come to Brazil alone?
First, when we left South Africa, I was pumped with adrenaline. I was rushing so much to make the boat ready. My visa was running out, so there was a deadline, we need to go. Just taking a good window, the window with 30 knots, okay, that's perfect. It was a bit too much for them. Maybe too much for me as well, because we got in situation we were too fast, and once we even took all the sails down and lines out to slow down, we were still doing like 5 knots down the big waves. Good sailing, I love this, but what happened is my friend was sick and scared, and his girlfriend was completely scared. They trained only in the Mediterranean with no wind, no big waves, so it was kind of, too much. But I realized this straight away since the beginning. Even with the crew, I was starting doing things, trying to look if I could do it all myself. So we arrived in Santa Helena, I already did maneuvers like putting a reef alone. And I realized this boat is really great to be alone. It's actually perfect for a single-hander. It's, let's say, better for 2 people because then you're safer, but... And when they decide not to continue, of course it's a huge pressure. I had to rearrange the boat. I just changed my plan because the plan was to go straight from Santa Helena to Brazil. And it would be a 3 weeks crossing. I said, okay, let's do a little detour and go to Ascension. And this was only 6 days, 700 miles. It was good for a first passage, and the wind was it was the best passage I had. No showers, no squalls, just constant wind, perfect.
A Ilha de Ascensão é outra ilha bastante isolada no meio do Atlântico, também é uma ilha britânica, e fica a 1.300 quilômetros de Santa Helena, não dá para dizer que é próximo. É uma ilha bastante importante do ponto de vista militar e tem uma base aérea, britânica lá. É um dos poucos lugares também no mundo que tem uma antena terrestre que opera o sistema de GPS.
So my first passage alone was really like, gives me maybe too much confidence now. So this was a great experience, and then the next crossing from Asunción to Fernando de Noronha became harder because closer to the equator, a lot of showers, squalls at night, and you're sleeping and you need to rush, take down and put a reef in, and then it starts to be more stressful.
How was your time here in Brazil? Where did you sail? What did you learn?
So I arrived in Fernando de Noronha.
Uh-huh.
I didn't put my feet on the island because it's too expensive. But another sailor told me if you stay at the anchor, they will not come and ask for the money. And I needed so much the rest. So I stayed there let's say if they will ask money, then I'll pay and stay only one night. So I was just staying on the anchor, resting and preparing. And this navigator I met, I ended up on his boat because I needed a pump for my dinghy. And my pump was not working, my part was missing. And then he had a pump, and then I said, okay, I'm going to try if he would sell me the pump. And then he joked, say, hey, in a place like this, the pump, I sell it for $500, not less. But you can come for dinner tonight. And I ended up on his boat, and I realized he's really very used to go to Antarctica and Patagonia. And he told me, you should go down there or you'll regret all your life. So he's the guy who changed my plans, and I was alone, I could easily change my plan. So, okay, let's go down. But in Brazil, I had no charts for Brazil. So I sold the charts for the Caribbean, and now when I do a passage, because I still don't have the charts from the Brazilian coast, I'm just writing down way more information. From Fernando de Noronha, I went to Capedelo, this is João Pessoa. It was a very nice marina. It's where I realized how tired I was. Because I had this 3 days rest on Fernando de Noronha, but I arrived there for a week, I was dead. I was doing nothing. It's where you realize your body is accepting getting tired. But after the crossing, he claims the time back to recover. And I was way more tired than I thought. And I was in this marina, I met people, and there was a couple. I took a French couple with me to help me to go down to Salvador. And then later I sailed alone again. Actually, Brazil has so much to offer for sailing. It's really great. But most of the foreigners, they don't only get 3-month visa. It's hard to extend or it's complicated. Actually, the pandemic allowed me to discover so much Brazil because my visa is extended. And I could stop in many places like Morro de Sao Paulo. Then I stopped 4 months because of the pandemic in Camamube area. 4 months there waiting the pandemic to pass, and then I had no gas anymore. I could not cook. I could not fill my bottles there, so I had to leave. So I continued. Ilhéus, Abrolhos. Abrolhos is fantastic. I loved it. I could not go on the islands because of the pandemic, but they allowed me to just anchor.
Yeah, we are so lucky because you have this huge coast. It's like a continent, you know.
Yeah.
So that's my plan to enjoy it before we go cruise around the world. And what to tell to people that think about doing experience like yours?
Go simple, go now. Especially older people who end up preparing a boat for 10 years, they will never leave. Or a friend of mine, he said, but I have little problems with my hips and I only want to sail on a catamaran, not on a monohull. A catamaran is the budget is times 5 or times 10. So if you really want the adventure, you have to go with what you have. And this boat is already more than just basic. I'm lucky this boat is really good. Gives me a lot of confidence, especially being alone. But I met a Swiss sailor, he was on a little catamaran, plywood, 26 foot, and he crossed the ocean like this. He came from Europe to Brazil. No toilet, no life raft. It's too much on the limit, but he did it. Because it's in his budget, it's a boat he has, and he goes. And I think this is the real adventure. Depends a lot on your skills as well. Are you skilled to repair things? Do you like to do it? I think important is to do the maintenance even before it's broken. And if you don't like doing it, then you will be more likely into trouble. Or you need a lot of money because you pay everybody to do it. You need to be very skilled with the hands for being a captain on a boat.
Most people think that it's all about sailing, but it's a lot about fixing.
Yeah.
Fixing.
Yeah.
I had to learn a lot because I was not a maintenance guy for sure, and I am not today, but I had to learn. I like to disassemble and assemble my engine and a lot of stuff that I would never dream I would learn.
But if you enjoy doing it,
Yeah.
then it's already a win.
Algo que o Gil falou lá no início do episódio me fez pensar bastante. Todos querem viver mais. Mas o que é exatamente viver mais? Será que é só o tempo que a gente vive aqui na Terra? Ou viver mais também está relacionado a quantas pessoas conhecemos, quantos países passamos, quantos novos gostos provamos? Então, se a gente pensar dessa forma, alguém com 32 anos pode ter vivido muito mais do que algumas pessoas com 50 ou 60 anos. Então, qual é a melhor forma de contabilizar o quanto vivemos? Se você pensa como eu, como o Gil, vá de bicicleta, vá a pé, vá de carro, mas vá. Meu muito obrigado a todos que comentam, que dão like, compartilham o hashtag Sal. E o meu muito obrigado mesmo a todos que apoiam a gente e mantêm esse canal. Seja no Apoia-se, ou que está no link abaixo aqui, se você quiser se tornar um apoiador, ou então como membro do canal aqui no YouTube. E é fantástico. Muito obrigado pelo apoio de vocês. E não se esqueçam também de conhecer o Nômade Ali, o canal da Aline, que é incrível. Ela fez vários dos episódios mais incríveis aqui do hashtag Sal. Eu tenho certeza que você vai gostar. Dá uma checada lá.